Hey everybody, this is Brian Grasso, founder and CEO of the IYCA. And last week we talked a great deal over two different newsletters, two different blogs, about the concept of sports specialization, early sports specialization. And it's still very much a contentious topic. And I think the reason that's true is simply because most people, I don't want to say this like as a general sweeping statement. I'd say the majority of youth fitness specialists, if not all youth fitness specialists, certified youth fitness specialists with the IYCA, they understand the concept because we talk about it endlessly in our YFS1 certification program. Outside of these, professionals who are IYCA certified, so a lot of other strength coaches and personal trainers worldwide in the industry at large who are not necessarily educated or accustomed to the concepts of long-term athlete development, it's quite a misnomer for that collection of people. And then outside the industry at large, parents, coaches, volunteer moms and dads, etc., who work in youth sports, most assuredly the topic is confusing. But in fairness to everybody, I understand why it's confusing because we hear general gross statements, things like it takes 10,000 hours or 10 years of concerted work to become a specialist in anything in particular, be it academic, sport, music, you name it. And so because of that, we think that means we are required to immerse ourselves, and that's a key word there, immerse ourselves into 10 years worth of effort in a particular activity or area of study and expertise to become an expert in that particular subject matter or topic. Again, sport, musical instrument, whatever it might be. But here's the caveat. There is a decidable difference between sport specialization and sport exclusivity. And that's what I think the broader point that needs to be made clear, where we have to bridge this topic, okay? Early sports specialization is a mandatory reality for some sports. Figure skating, gymnastics, and even diving come to mind, where sports specialization early in the chronological development of a young athlete is imperative, but it's imperative because there's a peak reality. Elite gymnasts, for example, are usually very, very young, in contrast to football players, baseball players, hockey players, soccer players, etc. So that's one reality of sports specialization. The other thing to consider, though, is that the concept of long-term athlete development, and this is an important part, is a really strong branch of the subject matter and what I really need you to understand. Long-term athlete development is, by and large, conceptual. It's a philosophy. It is a scientific paperwork of what should come in the way of stimulus and training, sport participation, etc., in a young person's life over their chronology, over their development, and ascension from pre-adolescent into adolescence into adulthood. Now, that's not I quote science all the time. I read research all the time. I understand the incredibly important nature that research plays and governs within our industry, and understanding training, communication, nutrition, whatever it might be. But without truly applying or understanding the application of long-term athlete development, the concept of long-term athlete development, how do you apply that to contemporary society? That is the kicker. So this is why I always lean towards in the trenches coaches for my valuable interaction in terms of things I want to learn. I like to talk to coaches who coach. I learn from them. Of course I learn from science. Of course I learn from the research. But then how do you apply it? What does it mean practically from an application standpoint? That is often the missing link with respect to research at large. So for me, what do the coaches have to say? What do the coaches feel? What do they use trial and error? How does it work and why? Can they then substantiate that from a research template that their work does in fact have merit from a scientific basis? And that's the whole consideration. That's what I call bridging the gap of understanding the difference between sport specialization and sport exclusivity. Because long-term athlete development is a conceptual model. How does it apply, though? Okay, again, to contemporary society. So here's the roundabout argument and the strong consideration I want you watch this video perhaps more than once and chew on over and over again so you understand, and even bring about questions, post them on this blog so we can get into an interactive discussion on the matter. Long-term athlete development says that sports should be played seasonally. Non-stop stimulus of different athletic environments. And I love that, of course. I stand by that wholeheartedly. But the true danger of not following an LTAD model as it relates to sport participation really, to me, is not specialization per se, it's exclusivity. Sport exclusivity implies that you only participate in one sport. That all of your adjunct training in the weight room, in the gymnasium, whatever it might be, all the speed work you do, agility work you do, is exclusive and closed habit oriented. Closed habit implies motor skill, nervous system skill. It's all closed specifically and exclusively to a sport or even a position. That's the danger. When a football player, a 7-year-old football player, decides, their parents allow them, their coach reinforces that they are going to be a football player, that's it, that's all, then they participate in the sport of football 12 months a year, and all their adjunct training goes for them to become a better football player. That is sport exclusivity. Therein lies the danger. You're not developing a warehouse of motor ability or neural skill. You're not developing a warehouse of broad-based athletic ability. You are absolutely over-patterning from a muscular and neuromuscular perspective, which will lead, no bones about it, will lead, not may lead, will lead to injury, either soon or down the road. Sport exclusivity is problematic. Sport specialization may not be. And I say that, again, because specialization means that, again, you are specializing in something but not exclusifying your efforts towards it. So the rule I always go with is on the whole concept of directed loads versus non-directed load training. Utopian, my perfect world, every child spends 25% of their time in a given year on different avenues of sport participation, stimulus, etc. So really, the year is broken down to quarters. 25% of your time is spent playing soccer and learning different skills and attributes towards that. The next 25% is basketball or gymnastics or swimming, whatever it might be. But practically applied, and this answers some questions we had in the blog, is this whole 10-year guideline of not diversifying, but specializing in a particular sport so that you can generate this this narrow-based ability to succeed in that sport. Is it possible to do so safely and effectively? I believe it is. I think as long as we stay in the guidelines of 60-40, but no more. If you choose to specialize in baseball, that is where your little Johnny really smiles. That's where he really loves to be. And as a family, as a coach, you're okay with that. Then 60% of your time could be denoted towards baseball, adjunct training for baseball, injury prevention for baseball, the playing of baseball. So long as 40% of your time is allocated to very specifically non-baseball related stimulus, sport play, and adjunct training. At 60-40, I would still consider you a specialist in baseball. That is what your specialty or your special directed load is towards. But that 40% is inherently critical. It's so much more than just an off-season. It's additional stimulus. It's additional injury prevention. It's an additional warehouse of athletic skill you're building that will very much contribute to you being a better baseball player in time. So, is early sports specialization possible without the risk or detriment of injury and not developing this warehouse of skill that will be a prohibitive factor for you playing college or eventually pro baseball? Is it possible to be a sports specialist, even as young as 6-7 years old? The answer is yes, but provided we're quantified on time frames, percentages, and what that 40% is made up doing. Because it's not just downtime. It's not Wii. It's not video games or TV. It's additional stimulus that is very non-directed towards the sport of specialty. Given those parameters, that is how I see long-term athlete development fitting in the complexity of modern society, with an incredibly enhanced academic schedule for young kids, tutors, whatever might be in or going on in a young person's life. I understand the stress that some parents and coaches have with respect to getting in all the hours they want to for that one sport. So here's my permission for you to understand that sports specialization all by itself may not be the evil that it's often made out to be, provided there are limits, denotions of time, or percentages of applied time to work at that specialty area. But those 40%, those 45%, the 50% that is non-directed, the non-specialty training, is very much directed towards other pursuits and not just considered downtime or, again, time to watch TV, time to play video games. So in that, use the 60-40 calendar. Split up your annual year. Split up your week. Split up the number of hours you have in a day with your young athletes, your children, whatever, whoever I'm talking to now, if you're a parent, a coach, a trainer, etc. And make sure that 40% of their time is spent in a non-directed way, applied non-direction. It makes the whole quantification of sports specialty a lot more palatable to folks who might not understand the science of why it's important to take the foot off the gas pedal and not just be so directed all the time towards one sport application. Again, sport specialty and sport exclusivity are very different things. I want you to stay well aware from sport exclusivity with young athletes. If sport specialization is something you believe in, that's fine, but here's the quantified barrier or the quantified parameters I'll place on you. At least 40% of your young athlete's time must be spent in other avenues that are called non-directed sport participation or adjunct training. I hope that clears up a lot of things, and I'm looking forward to coming back to this blog over the course of the next week or two to hear what you have to say, entertain your questions, a nice dialogue. I love interactive conversations like this, so post your thoughts, ask your questions, and I'll be very kept abreast of exactly what's happening here on this blog so I can chime in with you as well. And if you haven't already, just below this video box is a link to our Level 1 Youth Fitness Specialist certification. All the information I just talked about here is depicted so well. And for my money, the best educational opportunity possible in the field of youth fitness and youth sport training. The IYCA Level 1 Youth Fitness Specialist, bar none. Dr. Kwame Brown and myself just lit it up on motor skill development, all the biomotors of flexibility, mobility, strength, speed, how they're developed, why they're developed chronologically, what happens at different ages, the whole argument of sport exclusivity versus sport specification. So right below this video box is that link. Click it, go get certified right now so you understand this argument and this science much better. And of course, in the interim, ask your questions, chime in with your thoughts. I'll look forward to interacting with you for the next couple of weeks, okay? Thanks so much for listening and watching. This is Brian Grasser, founder and CEO of the IYCA.